to me, that looks like a spot on the Mavs, just waiting for Melo to put on a blue jersey and stand in the corner and launch some threes on behalf of the Mavericks. And Cuban could be his biggest supporter. Maybe we need to actually talk to Mark Cuban and maybe petition to get Carmelo on the team.
I just don't think he has it anymore.
Should any team want Carmelo Anthony?
Blasphemous.
Yes, sir, Carmelo.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Control the Narrative, a podcast where we control the narrative that the media creates. If you're new around here, subscribe to catch our weekly podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And if you're a returner, a subscriber, or better yet, a Control the Narrative member, like this fine gentleman is joining us tonight, we appreciate the members a little bit more, as the members know, part of the members, hashtag members only program. So here we are. It's February 6th. We're recording this on Monday. I know the trade deadline is the 9th, which is Thursday. So as the trade deadline comes and goes, Melo's not on the team. We know that there's no chances he's going to get traded because he's not on the team. But we know that whatever does happen at the trade deadline is probably going to affect Carmelo Anthony's year and ultimately career. So to talk about this, we brought on a member, a recurring guest on the show, and one of Control the Narrative's finest guests to date, Elmac. Elmac, how you doing, bro?
What's good? I'm good. Everything's Gucci over here. I'm very excited to have this conversation today. We're in a very special time right now, and I think many of us Carmelo fans are worried of how things are going to shake out in probably the next 10 days. It's obviously been a storied career. He's got dogged definitely a couple times, and currently he's not on a team, but I think we got one more kick at the can of what will happen and see if he gets on a roster.
Yeah, you mentioned it before I clicked record that this is the last window. We'll know in 10 days, 2 weeks max, what's going to happen with Melo's career. And we thought this shit was going to happen back in July. Then we're like, all right, August, September, October, November, December, January. And here we are in February. And we're just like, all right, cool. What's going to happen now? And the speculation is almost done. I just told you it was bro, it was tough to record podcasts. And that's why we didn't record for a month or two, because it was I'm not going to keep speculating. But anyway, let's get into it, because the top news in the NBA as of right now is that Kyrie Irving got traded from the Nets to the Mavs for Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, a few draft picks, and the Mavs also got Markieff Morris. So obviously, as teams trade and spots open up and needs are met or not met, the landscape of the NBA, specifically for Carmelo Anthony, is going to take place. And we're going to start to understand really what the options are over the next few days. But with all that being said, we know that Carmelo's always wanted to win a championship. We know that he hasn't won a championship. We know that he hasn't played in a championship. So do you think at this point, if Melo had the option, do you think it makes more sense for Melo to chase a chip with a team like the Mavs, who just got Kyrie, they have Luka, and we know the rest of the roster? Or do you think it makes more sense to just come home to the Knicks, finish out the last few months, and retire kind of on his terms?
Well, it's a really interesting question. I think, many players of Melo stature, and you think of guys that have won scoring titles or been to the finals or at least the conference finals, that have been multi-year all-stars. The ultimate goal is the championship. So I think if Melo gets on a team, or a couple teams ask, and one of them is the Knicks and another one is a contender, he's going with the contender. I think there's no other way. I don't think he can turn his back on the opportunity to potentially, in some people's eyes, solidify his career. I think his career, for me, and probably for you, Steve, was solidified many, many moons ago. But the reality is, I think he's definitely going to lean towards signing with a contender. You look at those teams that are out there. Is Memphis really ready to take the step forward? Is he going to sign and be an extra part on Boston? Is he going to sign somehow and fit in Milwaukee? And then obviously you just mentioned it, with all the trades, the big trade that they did to get Kyrie. To me, that looks like a spot on the Mavs, just waiting for Melo to put on a blue jersey and stand in the corner and launch some threes on behalf of the Mavericks. And Cuban could be his biggest supporter. Maybe we need to actually talk to Mark Cuban and maybe petition to get Carmelo on the team. Maybe that's how this has to work out.
Bro, I'm hearing from Mavs fans that bullying Cuban works because they've been bullying Cuban like crazy, being like, yo, get Luka some help. And he just did. And obviously, who knows if he was the one fucking heading it, but he just traded for Kyrie Irving. So we might need to bully him, Helmet.
Yep. I think we can get Stay Mellow Nation after Mr. Cuban and make it happen.
Yeah. And they're boys. I remember one time Melo even had Cuban on his podcast.
Yep.
What's in a Glass podcast. So that's all fair points, man. Like, the reason I asked this question is because instead of being like, yo, what team? I think it's like it. First of all, he has to decide what situation he wants. If that's in the books, if the Dallas Mavericks come to him, if the Celtics come to him, and then he could just kind of has to make a decision. And like, for me, when I think about going to a championship contending team, like the Mavs are trying to be and are, because the West is like wide open right now. And the Celtics, obviously, one of, if not the best team in the league. I just think about the odds of that team actually winning. And I think about what it would look like. And again, we've spoken about this a lot over the last few years of, should he stay in Portland? Should he come back to the Knicks? Should he go to the Nets? What do you think about him going to Lakers? And like this whole like ring chasing thing. And obviously, we've said this time and time again, we all want Melo to win a championship. It's just a matter of how big of a part is he going to play? So if he goes to Dallas and the Mavs call him and it's like, yo, we want you on this team. We're going for it right now. And he's someone who's just standing in the corner and playing that Lakers role. Like, he was one of the few people on that Lakers team who showed up and did their job.
Yep. Both ends of the floor too.
Yeah, 100%. And like averaged almost a block a game off the bench. Crazy. So I just like think about that, and I just don't know again how much credit he would get for. Like, it'd be an amazing story again. Like, yo, this dude's out of the league again, and he came back and was like a piece of this team winning the championship. We were talking before we clicked record, and then I was like, yo, Mac, we need to click record because this is good shit about the Mavs and like, the way they play and the way they've been playing since Luka got drafted. Where it's like it's Luka or nothing. Like it's his.
Yeah.
He's the only guy who's really handling the ball like that. Like it's all on him to generate offense. So now that they got Kyrie, hopefully they'll allow Kyrie to like really take some pressure of Luka and really allow him to like lessen Luka's load. And then I'm like, damn, cool. Would Melo do the same thing? And that's why I was like, yo, Melo to Dallas, and not like campaigning for it. But I was like, I think that makes sense because
it does make sense.
Drop the ball too. And just go get a bucket. And obviously Melo's a great spot up shooter. And obviously Melo plays solid defense. Obviously not the last one because people don't really know that or like to forget about that. But at the end of the day, with all that being said, bro, I think if he had the opportunity to come home to the Knicks, if the Knicks were like, yo, just come home, and the Knicks end up trading Obi, and you could get 15 minutes a game. And if you want to finish out your career like this, like go for it. If you want to come back another year, like not promising minutes, I just think he's so focused and occupied with other things besides basketball because he has to be. He'd be going fucking crazy if he wasn't. That he probably feels like, yo, fuck it. It's going to be the end for me either way because if he goes to Dallas and stays for 3 months, or if he goes to Boston and stays for 3 months, one, I'd never be able to picture him in a green jersey, like the color that you're wearing. I don't know. That's the Melo collection. But two, it's like, cool. And then it's after the 3 months, and let's say the Mavs go to the conference finals and they don't win. Then it's like, now what? Now do you go back to the Knicks? Should they even give him that opportunity? So all that being said, if Melo has an opportunity to come back to the Knicks and play 15 minutes a game, if they trade Obi and just go out on his own terms, like this was something that Chris Brickley said 2018 or 2019 when Melo was getting blackballed. It was like he wants a farewell tour, and Melo came out like the next day. He was on with Stephen A on ESPN. He's like, no, that's not the truth. But now I feel like it would be his 20th year. It makes sense for him to just be like, yo, spend my last 3 months with the Knicks. Allow the fans who some of them were talking mad shit and saying all this stupid ass shit in Melo's last few years in the team, and to show him love and like the city show him love, and then any visiting arenas, I think that's an opportunity that he should not pass up.
Yeah, it's definitely one, and I think you think of how that energy would be leveraged in the Garden every single time he got off the bench, and he's probably getting off the bench twice a game, and he gets a standing ovation, and people start cheering, and the team's playing bad, and all of a sudden they get just a jolt of it. There's no one in the NBA that probably could be on the Knicks that would make fans more excited to come off the bench and play limited minutes. Like you think of, I'm not even thinking like Haslam minutes, but to that effect, like someone that is well renowned and well loved in an organization. It would be something special to see him play out the rest of his time. I just hope in some capacity he gets a chance to play one more time in the NBA. And I'm not talking one game, but one more run. And if it ends up being this year, I think he would be okay with it. I think we would all be okay with it. But how this is played out and how we're on, Blackball 3.0, this is just ridiculous that he's not playing. He's capable. There are guys that are in the league that are not better than him. He played for the veteran minimum, and he's not asking for a cent more than that. And to tell me that he cannot be on a roster is nothing less than just being blackballed in the NBA. And it's truly sad to see. Like I need a 30 for 30 after this is all said and done, and someone's got to uncover why. Like really why. Like beyond the Houston thing and people kind of dancing, is he going to get signed? Is he not? He wasn't on he left Portland, and then there was the whole Lakers thing. And then, they're going to sign him, whatever. And, we know LeBron could have him on his team, probably ever since the Houston piece. LeBron could have gone and get him and he got him once in LA. He still would be valued in LA based on what they're trying to do. And he's chilling at home with his son and watching his son blossom into a really good basketball player. But that's not what we wanted. He can blossom into a basketball player a lot later in life, next year, the year after, when he's done, but he ain't done. And that's the thing, because he isn't done and he's not playing. And that's kind of what gets under our skin.
Yeah. And it's crazy because they don't have any excuse anymore. They can't say he's not efficient or effective anymore. He just set a career high in efficiency field goal percentage. They can't say he doesn't want a lesser role. He just came off the bench for the second straight season. They can't say he doesn't play defense because he just averaged almost a block a game. And not saying that that's the only number. It's like, all right, yeah, he plays defense, but if you just watch him, he's not as bad as people say he is. So there's no reason, to your point, where somebody can look at it and be like, yeah, but Melo this. He's a great vet leader on a team. Like, and again, we could go down the line, but it's crazy. It's not like he wants money, and like he's just signed for the vet min, and I know he's charging $100 for those hoodies. So I don't know if maybe it is. Maybe he does want more than the vet min at this point. The guy used to get paid fucking $30 million a year. So
well, he got paid $30 million a year to stay home.
Yeah.
The whole Houston ordeal.
Yeah, that too. Yo, sorry to interrupt you if you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, but just wanted to let you know that we sell merch here at Control the Narrative. We got everything from t-shirts, like I got this Pixel Melo t-shirt right next to me. Then we got this Melo Knicks wrap tee that we sold. This was a bestseller, as you can imagine. We got hoodies. We got new era snapbacks. We got champion beanies. We got a lot of heat on the site for only Melo fans, only those people who control narratives. Shop controlthenarrative.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead to the description. You'll see the link there. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, just type it in, shopcontrolthenarrative.com. A bunch of heat. We're always dropping shit. So go check it out. I'm sure you'll find something you like. And now let's get back to the show. But yeah, man, I guess we'll see, because really where I wanted to lead into, because the trade deadline is Thursday. How long after the deadline do you expect Melo's name to start popping up in rumors? What is kind of like the unofficial deadline you're giving in terms of, cool, if Melo's not on a team by this date or blank many weeks or days after the deadline is probably wrapped. Just what's your thought on the timing of the deadline and specifically in regards to Melo?
Yeah, I think definitely, obviously, the deadline is this Thursday, and some things will have to shake out. And we definitely will have some teams that will be vying for, guys that can play the wing and guys who can play a little bit of defense or guys that can, give some instant offense off the bench, a la, and I think of my hometown Raptors and you think of Gary Trent Jr. That's a commodity people would love to have.
Baller.
OG and Anunoby is another one because he plays defense. That's another guy that people are very, very interested in. And there's lots of guys out there. Like, you could easily said that Dinwiddie was going to be a guy that people would be coveting if they could swing a deal that made sense for the Mavericks. Well, he got dealt. He got dealt in the whole Kyrie thing. So I would tell you that the magic date in my head is March 1st. If he is not on a team by March 1st, it just isn't happening. And unfortunately, we will have to really think about how this kind of came to be, but I don't see any opportunity on him being on here. Like there would have to be a catastrophic injury to someone and they would just have to be reaching. It's like, oh, we just go get Melo. Melo is still ready. Melo is relevant. That's the only thing. But I think March 1st is the day that gives teams like 3 weeks. And I think there will be definitely some follow. They'll be chasing some of these guys that can really push them into another, potentially win another round because of what they acquire. But some teams will obviously, there's not enough guys and more teams that either need to get in, need to get in a better playoff position, need to have home court. So I really think that there will be some fallout in the next couple of weeks that, fan bases and ownership say, you didn't get it done. What are the other options? And Melo's name will start circulating. Even on the back burner, we know that there's certain publications that don't want to bring up his name, but his name will come up. People will start saying like, what are the options? And he is a better than most option after this is all done. So I think by March 1st, if it doesn't happen, that's giving it like 3 weeks, lots of time for people to talk during All-Star. I think that's a blessing in disguise that All-Star is there. But if it doesn't happen by then, I just don't see him being on an NBA team. And, that would be unfortunately the end of it.
Yeah, that puts it at like 2.5 weeks after the deadline. I was gonna say 2 weeks, so close enough. Where I was gonna mention All-Star because in Chicago when Melo wasn't an All-Star, he was still at All-Star weekend, and I thought that was interesting. And I think again to your point about like obviously teams are gonna be like, damn, we thought we were gonna get this guy and we didn't get him. What is plan B? And Melo's, he's not going to be anybody's plan A because if that was the case, he would have been on a team already. Yeah. So I think, well, I know that once teams don't get the guys that they are hoping for, that they're going to look at that buyout market, that they're going to look at current free agents, like you just mentioned. And All-Star weekend is the 17th to the 19th in Salt Lake City. So I give it to the 23rd. Okay. February 23rd, where it's like, all right, cool. After All-Star weekend, you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday. So if nothing happens early that week / midweek, then I'm like, shit, it's probably a wrap because, again, unless some crazy shit happened or unless the Knicks were just like, yo, Melo, on March 1st, yo, Melo, just come and like, you're probably not going to get minutes, maybe in a couple blowouts or whatever, but just come and retire and let us hang 7. Crossing my fingers on that one up in the rafters. I think that's the only way. Like, if it's not 2 weeks after, because people know that Melo's out there, the shit isn't going to be a surprise where teams have to think about it. I'm sure going into Thursday, and again, we're recording this on Monday. This shit's coming out Wednesday night, so I'm sure a lot of people are going to be watching this on Thursday, Friday. The trade deadline probably already passed. But once those teams look at their whiteboards and they say, fuck, all right, we didn't get this guy, we didn't get that guy. Well, look who else is left. Carmelo Anthony. That should trigger the switch. And I don't think it should be too long after the trade deadline that we start hearing rumors about Melo, hopefully. And it's weird because Melo's always the guy who you don't really hear too many rumors about, especially back in the day when he was blackballed the first time. We didn't hear shit about the Blazers, like at all. It was, I remember there was some rumors about like the Clippers, and there was a TMZ video that came out that he was in LA. And then one night it was just Woj tweeted Melo to the Blazers, and I was like, what the fuck? I never even
They weren't even
heard
on
a
the
single
radar.
thing about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
at all. So I think it's going to be one of those things where, like, you know, not necessarily that, oh, there's mutual interest, but I think it might be something where this team has interest in Melo a day after the trade deadline, a few days after the trade deadline, like this upcoming weekend, and then either next week or the week after. And if that's not the case, somebody would have made a move already. Like,
Yeah.
that's just it's just straight up, like, teams like to get in chemistry before the playoffs and shit like that. I think, to your point, All-Star weekend is at a very interesting time because now it allows the trade deadline to be before it. So, like, there's not going to be too much you know, conversating in terms like, yo, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna go there, and like Melo's not on the team, so maybe he goes there and you know, talks to people. So I think 2 weeks after, if Melo's not on the team, you know, we'll all get back on a podcast again and be like, to your point, how the fuck did we get here?
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah.
Why did we get so unlucky with the guy that we fucking picked as our favorite player to go through the shit that he's had to go through?
It's
and
made for an interesting podcast, but we didn't want it this way. We wanted to be talking about how we're going to get over the hump and win a title. You know, where is he going to end up on the scoring list? You know,
exactly.
You know, you already mentioned it. It's like, when and how soon do you think they hang 7 in the rafters? Do any of the other teams, you know, retire his jersey? Does he get retired in Denver? That's what we wanted to talk about. Like, that's the, you know, like, you think of the caliber player we're talking about and the crap that he is going through. It's bullshit. It's straight bullshit that we are talking about a guy that is 9th all time in the NBA scoring. And we're talking about greats that he has passed. And we're talking about, can he get on a roster for the veterans minimum to play 15 minutes a game? And he's still capable of playing. And he had one of his most, if not his most efficient season last year. Come on, dog. Like, for real.
Crazy. It's crazy shit, bro. And like, again, as we record these podcasts, like I said last week publicly for the first time, and like, not, yo, people are waiting on this, but like, I said it out loud that we probably have 3 months, if that, left of Melo basketball left in his career. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, that hit me where I was just like, cool, we're in this moment. I can't believe we're in it again. You know, like, this podcast kind of sprouted from that narrative surrounding him. And here we are 4 years later. And shit's still going on. So
the crazy
just
thing
wildly
is,
frustrating.
It is. And the crazy thing is that no one publicly has anything bad to say about him. Like, they say he's a great guy. He's a great teammate. Yeah, there's the stuff that happened with his wife, but he's a great father. He's, you know, he's gives back to the community. Like, geez, the last time I met him, he bought like 30 pairs of shoes and signed them all and handed them over to kids. Like, this is a good dude from a basketball sense, and he doesn't cost anything. Like, it's like $1.5 million to get him on the roster, to be part of your team and be in your locker room. But someone times 32 says no, that he should not be on an NBA roster, and that's just I'm beside
again,
myself,
bro.
to be honest.
The whole thing is, it just doesn't add up.
No,
it's like, cool. Then what's like the real reason? And we don't know it.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's
Hopefully
what we need. That 30. We need that 30 for 30 to uncrack this, right?
We'll make a Black Ball Part 2.
Yeah,
Jeff Bizdelic Part 2. We'll see what the fuck's going on, because none of this shit adds up, man. But you know, with all that being said, I think you know, I actually just read a couple of comments on the Control Instagram. It was like, where we posted a video and we're like, yo, Melo's probably going to be done in 3 months, no matter what happens for the rest of the season.
Yep.
And everybody was like, yo, what does that mean for this page? Are you guys going to stop? Like, what does all that mean? And I think, like, we're going to continue controlling narratives one way or another. It's going to remain basketball focused. It's going to remain, you know, players, teams, situations, things like that. Like, because I have to be passionate about it to, like, really put my best foot forward. And like, the reason that all this shit is not like blown up like crazy, but that there's like a real community around this is because like I put real work into trying to build this because I gave a fuck. And like obviously it's a dude that since I was 10 years old back in 2004, I was like, yeah, that guy Carmelo, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm setting up this question because we posted something about Stephon Marbury, and it was just an appreciation post, and it was like a quick highlight clip of him from the Nets, Suns. I don't think any Knicks highlights are on there, but just a few of the teams that he was on, and the Timberwolves. And he retweeted it and followed us on Twitter, which I thought was pretty cool. And he follows like 50,000 people, so not like we're one of 10 people, but he was a guy that he was my first favorite player. Like I grew up born and raised on Long Island, and like he was the best player in the Knicks at the time. So like that was my first guy. And Melo was actually my third favorite. And I'll get into who my second favorite was. Yo, last interruption, I promise. But if you've been listening or watching the podcast for this long, that means you probably fuck with us, which also means you'll probably fuck with all the perks you get from being a Control the Narrative member. We send our members free merch every 3 months, and it's exclusive to our members. We don't also sell this on our site. It's merch only for the members. So, for example, here's one we did. We paid homage to the 2012 Knicks Christmas Day jerseys. Also, all members always get 20% off all of our general drops forever. Like, that's not capped out. That's 20% off every single purchase on our merch website. We give our members free tickets to in-person events. We have a town hall every month. We always try to think about the members first and how we can bring value to those people. So if all this shit sounds interesting to you, go to controlthenarrative.com, click become a member, pick a tier, sign up, and we will see you in the Patreon, man. Excited for this. We have a lot of cool stuff in store for these members moving forward. So go sign up if that sounds interesting to you. And I promise, now we're back to the show for good. Because I know that you have a lot of memories, and I know that you've watched a lot of basketball in your day, Elmac.
Yeah.
One player in the last 20, let's say since the year 2000, so in the 21st century, whose game you think is severely underrated and why? I just want you just give someone their flowers.
Yeah, I will. I probably will. I've been thinking about this for a while now. Like, who is just someone that deserves a lot of credit? And it's funny you mentioned a guy that that I truly liked. He was obviously in a bad situation here. It was not a great roster. Hey,
Melo?
we no. Well, I'm not going to say Melo. It's not Melo. But no, we're talking. You were talking about Stephon Marbury, but I think of someone in that area, and I think I would go with. I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you a current guy, and I'm going to give you a guy from kind of Marbury's here, and I would go with Baron Davis. And Baron Davis, unbelievably athletic. Like, he's done things at the point guard level that we still haven't seen anyone else done. The challenge with Baron is he had bad knees. He got hurt in UCLA. And he's just, from the time that he had spent, with the Hornets, and then they relocated, and then, he eventually at one point he ended up on the Knicks, but you could see that he had the flashes of brilliance. But when you go back and look at the tape and look at what he was able to accomplish, and even his time in Golden State was extremely special. This is a guy that we just don't talk about enough. But when if you roll the highlight film on Baron Davis, you will go, wow. So, like, is this guy a first ballot Hall of Famer? Like, be able to shoot, be able to finish with both hands, be able to break guys off the dribble, be able to jump in passing lanes. And I think people forget his teams actually won. They didn't win. They didn't get to the conference final, but they win a round or two. And I think that is something Warriors. So unique about him and his career. And he's a good dude. I met him once when I was a manager at Foot Locker. He came in and he bought like 5 pairs of white Air Force Ones, size 11. I'm saying, like, why do you need 5? It's like, didn't pack properly on the road trip. I need 5. And, I have a stock at home, and this will go back in the stock. And it's like, stock of what? White Air Force. I have 100 pairs of white Air Force at home. That's that shoe. And it's like, yeah, man, that's how I roll. To each his own. He's a very charismatic guy. If you've seen him on TV, he's done a lot of good things in the community since he's he's not been in the league. But yeah, Baron Davis would be the guy.
That's a good one.
From present time. But I would really quickly, I think when people talk about all-star snubs and just what's transpired this year, I think the guy that still doesn't give his flowers outside New York is Jalen Brunson. And Brunson, if you look at the tape and you could see how good he was, and that's why the whole Kyrie trade happened, because they fumbled the bag in Dallas and they should have kept Brunson and they didn't keep it. And guess what?
That's a great point.
He had some family ties here in New York, and before you knew it, he was in New York. And if you think of how challenging things have been for the Knicks, and it's a roller coaster ride, but it's like there's actually upside to the roller coaster ride in New York, because sometimes we win and the next game we'll probably lose. Now we're coming back, like look at the game last night against the Sixers, and they were down 17 and came back. But Brunson is the one that keeps this team on the rails, and we haven't had a player like this, I will tell you, since Carmelo, that when the game is on the line, that's the guy that should have the ball in his hands to make the play. And he rarely misses. We talk about Randall. He's the all-star. It was great to hear Randall say it himself that Jalen Brunson should be right beside me on this all-star team. Now, you look at the players that made the all-star team. I'm not saying I'm taking any of those guys off in respect to those guys that are in the backcourt, but Jalen Brunson is an all-star. He's 23-6.
We'll call someone out. Elmac, Drew Holiday. Great player. Great player.
He's on a first-place team, and I understand why he gets the nod. How are you going to have two Knicks on that team, and you're going to just have Young? They weren't going to do it, and that's why it happened. Like, them the facts. But Jalen Brunson is an all-star player, and he deserves his flowers. I don't think anyone thought he was good. I had my doubts, and it's like, but I like how he plays. I love his toughness. He reminds me of Kyle Lowry with a deeper bag. I don't know if he's as good as Kyle and does all the things that Kyle, but you can see he's developing and taking charges and getting in passing lanes. Like, I think what Jalen Brunson's been able to do for the Knicks this year is remarkable, because this team can't go without a point guard, and you see the difference that he's making. This is a playoff team now because they spent a whole bunch of money and they got Brunson. And so long as they can stay healthy enough, they'll make the playoffs. And I think that's what we all want as Knicks Nation, that we just want a chance to be in the dance every single year.
Hell, the bar is so fucking low, huh?
It is. It is at this point.
I know. And he's probably the best point guard we've had since Marbury.
Yeah. So
I see what you did there, Elmac. I know you did that on purpose. So nice one.
I'm clever. You're not the only one that runs a podcast. You got to tie up loose ends. These rhymes alike, baby.
Fair enough, baby. We'll put that shit in the bio, in the description on YouTube and plug it after for sure.
All right.
But yeah, real quick on Brunson, I remember a lot of people, including myself, were just like, damn, I don't know about him. And it was never about him, the player. It was never about the contract. It was just that the Knicks were doing backflips to get him. And I was like, bro, he better live up to this hype, because they're trading picks. They're trading they did a quadruple backflip to get the space to sign him, to give him that huge deal. And the deal itself wasn't what me and a lot of people were like, oh, fuck, bro, like this is not right. It was really just like the trading of the picks and the players that I was just like, man, just to get the space to sign him, that I was just like, I don't know, but it's working out. So I hope it continues to. I also met Baron Davis once in person, and he wasn't the nicest guy to me. So, okay, wasn't like a dick, but like wasn't like that warming. So I was trying to talk. I was trying to talk Knicks basketball with him, and he didn't want to talk about anything Knicks basketball. Was that like an NFT? He's like, I'm not talking about basketball right now. And I was like, thanks, Baron. So the guy that I'm gonna say for this question, of like one guy who he gets a lot of love, and he definitely is talked about. I'm not saying that nobody talks about him, but I think when we look at this guy, and like, I love what you just said. If you just looked at Baron Davis's highlights, you'd be like, yo, this has to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And before I say anything, I just want to make sure that this guy isn't in the Hall of Fame. Okay, he is in the Hall of Fame. He's in the Hall of Fame. He was an All-Star 7 straight seasons. But and a lot of people feel this way, I genuinely believe that he could have been one of the GOATs, and not like top 5, but he could have been top 10, top 15 all time if his body didn't break down, and there were a lot of situations around this guy. Tracy McGrady. Like,
Yeah.
if you just watch his YouTube highlights, and again, we could talk about 33 points in 13 seconds, and I know he was in Toronto with Vince and like Orlando with Shaq and like a lot of different things. I think he was in Orlando with Shaq. Was Shaq there? Maybe
No,
not.
Shaq was
No.
already gone.
Okay. So I know he went to Orlando, but like Houston's really where he blossomed. And he's one of those guys that when you just look at his highlight tape, there's like, bro, what the fuck? This guy was like on another level. He could shoot. He was athletic as hell. His footwork was crazy. He had crazy high IQ. Like he was really the whole package offensively. And, he's one of those guys like Brandon Roy. I mean, T-Mac was an all-star 7 straight seasons. So not saying like, wow, he had a 1 or 2 year run. Like he was really good for a decent amount of time. But he was one of those guys who could have played if he was healthy and if a lot of things went his way deep into his 30s and, like year 17, 18, 19 type shit.
Yeah. Like cousin Vince.
Yeah, exactly. And T-Mac was just one of those guys who could dunk on the tallest player on the team, on the most intimidating player on the team, and then pull up against anybody from 30 feet, 35 feet. So I just think that when we talk about and there are a lot of people, like I said, who give flowers. Like Bull Don't Stop, I know gives flowers to T-Mac all the time.
He loves T-Mac.
Yeah, because bro, he was just a whole package. And like again, when you just look at those highlights, it's scary, and you're just like, holy shit, man! Like this dude, if he was really like the focal point, I could say healthy and shit like that, was unreal. He was my second favorite player of all time at the time. So it was Marbury. That was my favorite player. Then it was T-Mac. And then I bought NBA Live 05 and played with Melo. And she was a wrap from there. But T-Mac is another guy that I was just like, yeah, he was that dude.
Yeah, salute to that. And I think you were thinking of like the combination that when he was in Orlando, remember he went to play with Grant Hill. And then Grant Hill broke down first. And it was then, T-Mac, because he had the ball and he was the focal point of the offense. Because again, Grant Hill was the one that was the all-star. T-Mac was the one that was coming in as a 1-year-old after spending 3 years with the Raptors. I remember seeing T-Mac at like a Palladium, which is like a spot you could just go play video games. And he was like 18 and he couldn't drink. And he was just this scrawny 6'8" at that time. And but long as hell. And then you just watched him in Orlando blossom like he was just the go-to guy. And then you saw what he did in Houston. And yeah, unfortunately, the body and his knees in particular really broke down. But yeah, he was incredible. Like you hear about how Kobe talks about him. Like I think Kobe would admit that Garnett was probably the toughest guy for him to guard. Like he just didn't figure Garnett out before he left the league.
Durant or Garnett?
Oh, sorry, I said Garnett. I meant Durant.
Yeah. I was gonna say, wait.
No, it's Durant. But
yeah.
T-Mac outside MG, I think MJ's. I would just not even gonna count him. T-Mac is the next guy.
And Melo, he said Melo.
Yeah, Melo because of his size and being able to bully him and like Melo's lower body is just crazy strong. You can't reach around him, and he just has amazing post moves. So and be able to shoot all over the floor. He's a problem. So
yeah,
T-Mac definitely deserves his flowers for sure.
Yeah, and I thought that would hit home with you a little bit.
It does.
Him starting his career out in Toronto. So
yeah.
I try to be clever too, Mac. I got to step my cleverness up when you're on the pod.
I see you.
Yo, this is a quick question. I didn't put this on here, but I thought about this as we were speaking about all this. And I'm like, yo, I want to get your thoughts on this. Why don't specific players get their flowers? Do you think this is because, and like, there are a few reasons, whether it was like cool, like Brandon Roy, he had like a very short peak because of his health, like bad rosters, where like even a guy like Paul Pierce in Boston wasn't really, he was getting shitted on a lot when those Celtics teams were winning like, 18 games or like 27 games a season. Do you think it's the majority of players who don't get their flowers fall into those two buckets, or is there any other buckets that you think it's because of this also?
Yeah, I think it's you get caught up in the success of the team, you sometimes you forget about the statistics. And when you had, like, you think of, you just mentioned Paul Pierce, like when you had those dark times, you forget who is your guy that's out getting almost 30 points a game. I think it's just society in general. It's so easy to forget those that came before you. And there's very special people that are out there over the course of time that constantly go back. And when you talk about your favorite basketball player or your favorite rapper, they give the flowers to who they remember from their younger years. You look no different than Nas. Like, the first person that probably comes out of his mouth is Rakim, right, followed right after that by Coogee Rap. Like, he knows where he got his style from. He knows where his roots come from. And it's no different than, look at Kobe and MJ, right? Like, you watch Kobe play, he studied Jordan like there was no tomorrow, right? So it's just society. It's so easy just to kind of move on to the next guy. Like, hey, in this age, we're talking about Luka, we're talking about John Morant, we're talking about Giannis, but it's so easy to forget about the guys that, were in the league 15 years ago. Like, it already, like, I would even say, like, there was an article that I saw about, the best teammates that or the best duos that LeBron's ever been part of in his career, is he's like 36 points away from breaking Kareem's record, and Dwayne Wade wasn't even mentioned. And it was like, how? Like, he was just here. He was here like 2 years ago. So
who posted that?
I'll have to look it up for you and share, but that was the immediate comment. Like, people were writing, it says, like, did Wade not play with LeBron? Like, did he not win with LeBron? Like, what the heck? Like, how are we talking about this?
Wow.
How quickly, like, we're forgetting about the Heatles. That is not that long ago. That was within the last 15 years.
10 years.
10.
They won 2013.
So
wild.
Yeah.
That's a good way to end it. I like that, because again, like, you think of health, you think of bad rosters, like, there's so many different reasons. And, like, your point, like, winning has such an impact on how people remember players. Like, Derek Fisher is a guy who, like, a lot of people remember, and Raymond Felton isn't. And I'm not saying Raymond Felton was as good as Derek Fisher, but, like, they're both solid point guards. Like, Derek Fisher wasn't anything insane. He was a solid point guard on a great team. Raymond Felton, sometimes solid point guard on not so good teams. So, again, just narratives and narratives and frustration.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, all right, Elmac, 40 minutes. I only put 3 questions, and I know I say this in a lot of podcasts, but I was just like, shit, cool. If we could get like 20 minutes, like, that would be good for a pod. And here we are, 40 minutes in.
It's how it rolls sometimes.
Always.
Yeah.
So before I let you go, you know how we do it around here. I'm going to give you the floor to control a narrative. It doesn't have to be basketball related. It doesn't have to be sports related. So if you have one, I'm going to give you the floor to control the narrative.
All right. So I definitely would think, of all the things that are out there. I don't know if I can top the last narrative I gave you, because that became that one almost went viral. But I think, when you look at some of these young teams, it's really interesting who the veterans are on the team that can help a team get over the top. I think
where you're going with this.
We don't give enough credit to those veterans that are the presence, like I call it, the Adonis Haslams that have been on the Heat for so many years and helped them get over the top. And, you think of, how he was such an integral part of what Miami has done and the championships they've won. But I think the veteran presence in a locker room is so underrated. They may not be the most talented person. They may not be the one that is going to have the ball with the game on the line, but veteran presence means something. Leadership. These young guys like Luka, they're incredibly talented. They're going to carry the NBA for the next 10 years. But there are veteran presence that are out there that definitely help make a difference. And we all know our boy Carmelo is not in the NBA, and he is a veteran presence. They talked about him in Portland extensively. There was lots of good things that they said about him when he went to LA, but a presence like Carmelo Anthony can definitely make a difference on an NBA in a positive way. I think so many people say he's negative, and he got a bad rap when he was on the Thunder, and he got a even worse rap because it only lasted like 8 or 9 games when he was with the Rockets. Carmelo can make a difference with the team, and it's not even by playing, being in that locker room and making a difference and challenging some of these young guys to be better and to be more committed. So that would be the narrative. Think about your veterans. They make a difference when you're trying to win a championship.
That's a great one. I thought you were gonna go with attacking the Grizzlies.
Okay, I could have.
A lot of people talk about that, but you flipped it to Melo, so respect. And like, it's so true. Like, it's so funny when you say shit like, "Oh yeah, he got such a bad rap," and it's like, where does that come from? And like, he even had an interview with Rachel Nichols a few years ago. He's like, I hear all these things about me, like I'm a bad teammate and I'm a bad guy and all this, and I'm like, where does that come from? Like, none of his teammates ever said some shit like that. The only thing that was like semi borderline like that was that Billups thing, like 5 years ago. And he's like, oh well, Melo just wanted to score. It's like, no fucking shit. It was like, that's how he thought he could contribute to the team. It's like, yo, I'm the scorer, so if I don't go out and score 25 points, I'm not doing my job. So anyway, we've spoken at length about that. Yeah. So I think that's a great one. All right, Elmac. Tell us, drop like a 30-second little teaser about what your podcast is. We'll put all the links in the description and shit like that. But why should people go listen to it?
All right. Thanks for the floor. So Sneaks, Rhymes, and Life is some of the things I'm very passionate about. So sneakers, hip hop, and then anything else that kind of rolls into, including basketball and football. That kind of is my life. So I've had, from rappers to dancers to a variety of different people in those communities, hip hop or sneakers, that have been on the podcast. And I think it's a great way to talk about what's happening in the industry. Sometimes I've gone back and given people a history lesson of some of the things that have happened over time. So, and it's we talked about giving flowers. It's a great way to give flowers to some of the MCs, whether they've had a 30th anniversary. This is a very special year right now in hip hop. Hip hop turns 50. And then arguably one of the greatest years we've ever had in hip hop, which was 1993. So actually, I'm doing a 2023 till infinity countdown of 12 of my favorite albums. I do it once a month. I did Alcoholics 21 and Over, and it's an unbelievable album by those guys. And there's many other albums that I will cover over the course of the year. So that's the pod. A lot of fun. Welcome to have any dialogue on it. It always makes for great conversation.
Deal. Maybe we'll do a nice little baby podcast or a TI podcast, because I talk about that shit for days.
Yeah. All right.
Those are my two guys.
We can do that. I got lots to talk about with TI. We can get into that.
Good or bad?
No, good. Okay,
all right.
That's another guy that doesn't get his flowers. People
1,000%.
forget about what he's done. So
1,000%.
Yeah.
All right, Elmac. As always, my guy, appreciate you taking time out and hopping on here. Always a great fucking pod. I will see you in New York in 2 weeks, and hopefully,
maybe I'll see you in Utah,
in Salt Lake City, man. I appreciate you, bro.
Yep.